Well, joining us in the studio is CEO, KRONIKLA and Associate, AKIN FATUNKE. I'm sure I got that right.
You got that right, Veronica. How are you, Theophilus?
Very well, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's talk corruption now. The Transparency International has rated Nigeria 148, yes, out of 180 countries, and that has generated debates across the country, from the EFCC, the ICPC, the presidency, and persons out there saying that this is not right, that the EFCC should have been positioned better, looking at the convictions and so far what it has achieved so far with the fight against corruption. On what side of the divide do you stand with this now?
Thank you, Veronica. Good morning, Nigerians. I stand on the side of truth. I stand on the side of looking at the mirror and assuring myself that I'm a man, not a woman. I'm not transgender. And I stand there because when I face the truth and I'm able to embrace the truth, it therefore means I am capable of improving because we can't get perfection anywhere. Having said that, the Transparency International, they've been on this for 25 years, 24 years, and the last ranking indicated we slipped. We were not alone in the slipping. What I will say is the fact that quite a number of things are just not moving right. Don't forget, it is the perception of the business community and business experts, international experts looking at you, observing what you do, and measuring you on 126.
But is that enough? Can you just base your facts on perception? Is that enough?
Empirical evidence, surveys, and when you collect this over a period of time, we did this for 365 days last year, and I am aware that on average, I do not have to do a CPI to realize the fact that from cradle to grave, there are so many things that happen here, from switching of babies at the maternity, and if you succeed in dying and you can be put together and you are buried, so many other things happen at, to your tomb at the graveside. It's been happening, it's happening, and don't forget, in a situation where your population estimated is going to about 201 million, it means the velocity of corruption, even if you are trying to do a catch-up, if the velocity of corruption is at a lower rate than your growth in population and the poverty that you have around, then you are in trouble. And
so you are saying that this is a true reflection of where Nigeria stands?
I am asserting that is the true reflection.
But the federal government will not agree with you. EFCC as well has come out and said they do not agree with TI's perception.
The federal government need not agree with me. The EFCC need not agree with me. Please, let's get it straight. I am not talking about the fact that we are improving. I am saying we are improving slowly at a rate that is not commensurate when you compare us with 180 picked countries. And we are looking at politics. Okay, the political corruption in Nigeria, like we had in 2019, is glaring to the whole world. Everybody sees it. It's scorecard. It's showing amber towards red. The amount of money that's moved hands, the amount of the fact that political parties in Nigeria have gone from the fry pan to jumping into the fire. People switch. If you are perceived to be corrupt, if you have corruption, like what sort of chemicals hanging over your head, and you are able to switch parties, you become relatively clean. And the wheel of justice has been slow.
Could we have moved faster than we are moving now?
That is the point I am making. Because if we...
So what are we not doing correctly?
We are not getting electoral integrity right. The political parties are not real political parties with ideologies, with clear cut. People switch without clear ideologies. The anti-corruption law, and I give it to EFCC, I give it to ICPC, they are moving. I'm not saying they are not trying to convict, but when you look at the rate of conviction versus the rate at which crime is growing by leaps and bounds, you are just not there.
Between 2018 and now, where it's said that we dropped 2 places, we have had record of prosecutions, recoveries, and convictions, including 3 governors. And one wonders, is that winning? Isn't that enough to say that we are winning a war against corruption?
Economists say marginal improvements is clear. However, those marginal improvements, when you juxtapose them with the rate at which corruption stare at us in the public space, you begin to wonder. The truth of the matter is that it's a perception. Right from when you get onto the gates, the gateway of Nigeria, the airports, visitors coming in, and then you get greetings like, you're welcome, sir, what are you having for us, and all that kind of stuff, to get onto the roads. And the rules and regulations that in other climes is seen in observance, and you see with us in breaches. And like I have always said, even a low-hanging fruit, in situations where we have recovered assets from criminally minded people, it takes 10 years to put all that in place. So the Recovery of Assets Act, for the past 10 years, we are still struggling with it. The anti-corruption laws have, in the perception of what people see, is still not working, because if you belong, those rules will not catch you. That is the perception. The perception down there is that those laws are for the poor, the poorest of the poor. And then you get a slap on the wrist if you are a big man and if you can switch parties. This goes on every day. The NGOs and the media are also not out of it. On November 9, 2019, and we think CPI, Transparency International, is not looking at it, a journalist in Rave Television, just because he was trying to make some disclosures, he was attacked. November 9, very, very, very instructive. Clearly 1 month before we started celebrating Anti-Corruption Day in Nigeria. That was December.
So you're
December
saying that
9.
corruption is innate in the fabric of the nation, not just looking at the works of the at the center, but in our daily lives.
All aspects of our life. Don't forget, Theophilus, we are looking at public sector. We have really not touched light, as my people will say, into the private sector. So much corruption is going on, tax evasion, short-circuiting the system, sex for marks in our schools, open defecation, which Mr. President himself has clearly alluded to, our Procurement Act, another low-hanging fruit. Our Procurement Act asks for the Procurement Council. And that is not in place, and that's an area that government itself has clearly said we have a lot of corruption. So if you know you have a lot of corruption, and then the Procurement Council is still not in place, then what are we talking about?
But these are some of the things that the president talked about, even in his speech January the 1st this year, to address. And even when he came in 2015, you know, a lot of persons looked up to the president, you know, changing the narrative of this perception that you have talked about, that people have across the world concerning Nigeria. Are you saying from your argument now that the president may be putting as much effort but may not be able to rid the country of corruption?
Corruption, if not tackled frontally and placed, it's a relay race. It's not for one government or one regime. It has to percolate over a period. I think President Muhammad Buhari means well. I think a coterie of some anti-graft agencies in terms of the rules and regulations they have, they are trying well, but we have to move beyond the talk shop. We have to be able to walk the talk. I say to Nigerians and to you, there is absolutely nothing wrong if you failed an exam. We begin to look at the CPI ranking as a failure. We begin to look at it as a politically minded thing. About 3 years ago, when Nigeria moved up, the same agencies of government went to town and they were praising it. The integrity of the CPI ruling cannot be faulted. True, 50% of the 180 that were ranked have really not improved. Must we continue to see ourselves as part of those who are not improving? The rate at which corruption is eating into the fabric. So, Mr. President, January 1 can make a statement. How far of this have we seen with his henchmen and down to the grassroots? So clearly, we must look at those anti-graft laws. We must be clear. We must be clear about the definition of corruption.
All right.
And that is it.
And the reactions that has greeted the ratings by Transparency International. Now, do we need to look at these ratings to get validation from the Transparency International?
Those validations are globally acceptable, not just for Nigeria. 24 years now since 1995 when they came in. I mean, you go to an exams, the rules are stated. Again, like it says, it's perception. Perception of what really happens. So go there on the streets, ask the student, ask the NGO, ask the university lecturer, ask the civil servants. They will tell you things are just not moving in the right direction.
Perception is not reality. Perception is relative.
Perception is reality, Veronica. Some realities might even be colored in a way that you say, hey, wait a minute. But if I perceive you, then internally, metaphysically, I see you as many people outside the shores of Nigeria have been outside the shores of Nigeria and they ask me questions. They say when I get to your country, your immigration will be asking me for tips here and there. And somebody asked me once, so if I am going to be smuggling something that is going to be detrimental, okay, to Nigerian health by just exchanging some few dollars, that means Nigeria is gone. Okay. So little things like that, perception, Veronica, let me just say, is reality.
So if we're to look at these ratings now and the perception, how do we improve? What do we do to improve? Since from your statement, corruption is beyond what the center is doing. It's ingrained in every aspect of our lives. So how do we improve on these ratings?
Easy. Low-hanging fruits. One, the proceeds of Crime Act. It's been crawling for about 10 years. It's in the presidency. Mr. President should get the will to sign this into law. I hear that some of the anti-graft agencies are pussyfooting because they want to do their thing in their little way, you know? That is one. Two, the Procurement Act has made a provision for a procurement council. Even government has agreed that the greatest corruption that you have around is from that Procurement Act. So what is stopping us from having that Procurement Council? All right.
Another aspect that was mentioned in that report is the aspect of reducing big money in politics and promoting inclusive political decision-making, which the report says are essential to curbing corruption. How so? Because you see that our politics has seems to be more of a do-or-die affair now. How challenging would that be, reducing money in politics?
Challenging but not impossible. Ghana has done it. Rwanda has done it. It's happening in Ethiopia. Why will it not happen in the giant of Africa? Again, your statement maybe a perception. Somebody will tell me, I live in Lagos and go and look at Oshodi, that Oshodi under the bridge will never be transformed. It got transformed. So, political parties must now have ideologies.
All right.
All right.
The rules and the game of looking at corruption must be clear. No favoritism. Okay? I also like to say very, very quickly that we must deal with conflict of interest. The National Assembly should dust the Anti-Lobbying Act and pass it into law.
All right.
Funding of political parties must be transparent, must be audited, and it must be clear.
All right, thank you very much, AKIN FATUNKE, for talking to us on this.
Thank you for having me.